Alright guys, I know I said we were going to be talking about the React router in this video, but I think there's still some things that we need to do to get set up. So the first thing I'm going to do is open up index.html, and this is the HTML file from the template that we're going to be using. And the important things that we need to copy over is going to be the CSS directory, vendor, and JavaScript, and image directory actually. And we're going to copy those into the public directory, and then we're going to add the tags themselves to the index in the public directory. So to show you guys what I mean, I'm going to go ahead and open up the template here, and I'm going to select vendor, JS, image, and CSS, and I'm going to copy these. Actually, is there anything in vendor? Okay, yeah, we're good. And then I'm going to go to documents, projects, website, public, and in here I'm going to paste these directories. And this is going to make the images and style sheets all available at the same relative paths as in the template here. So there won't be any paths that we really need to modify. We will have to a little bit, and I'll explain that in a few moments. What we're going to do in the head of this template, so again, this is the HTML file in the Start Bootstrap template. We're going to copy all the link elements. So copy. And then we're going to jump up to our website, the React index.html, and we're going to paste these under title. And then there's one thing that we need to do. If you look in around here, you're going to see a public URL variable. We're going to copy that, and we're going to be using that at the beginning of every relative link. So copy it to the bootstrap line and put a slash after it, and then also the agency.min.css. We're going to do the same thing right there, and I'm going to save it. And then our application doesn't seem to be doing anything, and that's probably because we don't have any elements there yet. And then what we're going to do is in the templates index file, when we go way to the bottom, we're going to see some scripts. We're going to be copying these as well. So copy, and in the index of the website, right before the closing tag for body, we're going to be pasting these here. I'm going to indent them properly, and then grab the public URL variable, and we're just going to paste those before where it says vendor and JS, and add a slash. So be sure that public URL %, and then slash is there. Now, we might get some issues with JavaScript. No, we are not getting any issues. Perfect. So what we're going to do at this point is I'm going to copy, I guess, the entire page. I really don't want to. Don't want to copy the whole page, but let's start with the navbar. Okay, so there's a few things that we're going to see once we start copying things over, and that is often with input fields that are not closed. React doesn't like that. You need to make sure all elements are closed. Even like BR tags, line breaks, some people write those and don't close them. I used to, actually. Back in 2012 when I started writing code, I would never close tags that should be closed. Somebody actually brought it up to me when they were looking at my code one time. This is before I did it professionally. but we've all been there, I think. So make sure that all elements are closed, even if they're self-closing. They need to be closed. And then there's a few other things that we're going to need to do as well. One is going to be a mass find and replace of class to class name. And traditional HTML style element properties. So those aren't how we write style directly on an element in React. And we'll discuss that more when we get to that. So I'm going to copy the nav here, the nav element and all its children. And we're going to jump up into app.js. And what we're going to do is actually, no, we're going to create a directory called components. And then we are going to create a file called page wrapper.js. Now in here, it's React component, so we're going to import React and component from React, and then class page wrapper extends component, and then down at the bottom, export default page wrapper. Now again, we do need a render method, and so render, we're going to open that up, and we're going to return div, and in this div, we're going to have the nav, and I just pasted that. So now in Visual Studio Code, to do a mass find and replace, you're going to Control F, and we're going to type in what we're looking for, and right now we're looking for class. Now using this method can be unsafe in that if you have the word class in your page, if you're talking about a class you once took, maybe there's text on the page talking about a class, that's going to replace that instance as well, because we're just doing a mass find and replace. So the safest way to do this is class equals and then a quotation mark. And doing this, you can see all these are highlighted. So now you're going to click the little arrow here beside the find, and you're going to have a new field called replace. And so we're going to type class name, and it's camel case, so the N in name is capital, equal sign, and a quotation. And then there's going to be two buttons here. You're going to click the one on the right. If you hover over it, it should say replace all. Good stuff. All right. So with that done, I should be able to save this. And nothing's going to happen in our application yet because we haven't actually used this page wrapper. So in app.js, we're going to import page wrapper from current directory, page wrapper. We can, let me close the find. I thought that would close on its own. Let's get rid of app.css here and logo.svg. And then in the return statement of the render method, we are just going to delete all that. And we're going to instantiate our page wrapper component. And we can just self-close that and hit save. It says it can't find page wrapper. That's right, because we're trying to import it from the current directory, but it's actually in a components directory. So save this. And now we'll see that we have the nav bar in there. And it looks bad because there's no background and it's built for having a background, but we can see actually that the style sheet is in effect. So that's good. What we're going to do is we're going to go to the index page of the Start Bootstrap template, and we're going to find the header. We're going to copy this like so. And we're going to go over to, well, we should create a page. That's going to be part of the page because each page is going to have a different header. So now we're going to talk about wrapping components. Now notice that this is a wrapper, and that's because we're going to wrap the page. So in components, I'm going to create a new file. Actually, no. In components, I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it pages. And then in pages, I'm going to create a new file called home.js. So we need to import React and component from React. And then we're going to write class home extends component. We're going to open that up, and then down at the bottom we're going to export default home. Now up here we're going to write our render method, and we're going to return. We need to wrap this element that we're pasting in a div, and that's because we're going to have multiple elements. This can't be the top level element, and we're going to paste. I'm going to re-indent this because that got screwed, and just like that. And now we're going to have to replace class again. I think that's it in this instance, so go Control F and see it's already pre-populated because we did that last time. So you can just, as long as everything looks good for you guys, you can replace all. And we're going to save. Now this doesn't change anything right yet, okay? And that's because we actually aren't including this home component anywhere. You might think we would do that in page wrapper, that we would just write our new component down here under the nav. That's not what we're going to do. In app, we're going to change this from a self-closing component. So I'm going to erase the slash. It's going to look like an opening HTML element tag. And I'm going to drop down and I'm going to close that. And now inside of this, we can write HTML or components. And so we're going to import, let me get rid of that find window again. All right. So in here, we're going to import home from components, pages, home. And in here, I'm going to create our home component, and it's going to self-close. Now I'm going to save this, and again, nothing has happened. Now I'm going to inspect here and go into the React tree so that you guys can see app, page wrapper, etc. If I go to page wrapper, now you're going to see that it has a props called children. And this is what we are going to have to use in the page wrapper to tell it to print out its children. So right now it has one child of home, right? And that gets passed into page wrapper as children. So we're going to go into page wrapper right here, and under the nav we are going to, it's a variable, so we need to open up these curly braces, and we're going to type this dot props dot children. Now I'm going to save this, and what this is doing now, Our application is creating the page wrapper, and it's going to do all this stuff. And then down here, this props children is equal to any element that is inside, in between the opening and closing tags of page wrapper. So when I go back to my application now, we see that it's updated and it has the children. Now to expand on that a little bit, I can also add regular HTML, and I'm going to save this, and when we go back to our application, we're going to see hello printed down there. If we look at the React tree, we're going to see that all that is inside the page wrapper element. Now, if I were to move this, so I'm going to copy it, and yeah, let's put this in a div, I guess, for right now. If I put the H1 element outside of the page wrapper, you're going to see the structure change. Going to expand down here, and we can see even when it's not collapsed, that hello is not inside of page wrapper. So that's one of the core concepts that we're going to be using throughout the next number of videos. I'm not exactly sure how many, however many it takes to get this complete. In the next video, I think we're going to be good to get set up with React Router, and we're going to put the router inside the page wrapper, and depending on the route, we're going to return a different component.